everybody to the Breakdown Podcast YouTube channel. My name's Corey, and in this video, we are going to be breaking down episode 3, out of 3, yes, of Stargirl. So, Vic.
Now, not episode 3, chapter 3.
Sorry,
They're not episodes,
3.
They are chapters.
Chapter 3 of Stargirl. Vic, let's break this down.
All right. So this episode of Stargirl Chapter 3, we get introduced to yet another, which I completely forgot about. I remember we had a conversation. I'm like, well, I think that's it. I think we've got all of the JSA put together. And I want to say that I had remembered about the pen, and I think that I said besides the pen, but I wasn't sure. But the pen came up this week, so I was like, well, if I did remember the pen, then good. If I didn't, then I forgot about the pen. I will admit to it.
I think I did too. I think that's one of the easier ones to forget about. Yeah. And with the story, it seemed like that's not unheard of.
Yeah.
Because this character was pretty much, yeah, you're going to have to ride the bench on this one.
Right.
Really can't use you.
So it starts off 11 years into the past. The JSA was heading out on that mission that they all got killed on, is what I'm taking it from. And Johnny Thunder meets Pat Stripesy down in the garage. He's working
Played
on
by Ethan Embry.
There you go.
If you're familiar with Empire Records or Vegas Vacation, or I'm trying to think, there were some other things throughout the 90s. Oh, is it Can't Hardly Wait? I think that's the one. So I think that's the one. Anyway, he did a bunch of movies as a teen and young adult in the 90s. I was like, when I saw him, I was like, is that Ethan Embry? And it looked like him. But I was like, I couldn't even.
If only you had a powerful little handheld computer to look those things up.
Forget that. I just waited for the credits to roll.
There you go.
And then let's put his name.
That's the other way to do it. So him and Stripesy are having a conversation basically about the fact that they're sidekicks, And we didn't previously know that Johnny Thunder was a sidekick, but based on the way he dresses, yeah, he's definitely a sidekick.
Yeah.
But he's got on his little suit.
I thought he was their tax mate. They're like
tax guy. I wasn't sure either. I was like, so what is your job here? But
he's their agent.
He has Thunderbolt. And for those of you who don't know who Thunderbolt is, he is an actual DC character. Basically,
Thunderbolt Ross.
No, not that Thunderbolt. Oh. But basically, he's a genie for all intents and purposes. They play him off as being a djinn kind of character, and he's trapped inside of that pen. He can warp reality. He can use magic. He can fly. He can turn invisible. He can use lightning bolts as weapons. Like, it's just an overall generic kind of troublemaking entity person.
Yeah, the problem is you have to be very specific about what you want.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you don't really know what you're going to get.
Right. And what I think, what also, and what we find is that he is very, obviously he's a genie, he's a djinn, and the problem that he has is that he is held by the rules of the genie, race, I guess it is. I don't know how to speak in tenses when it comes to a genie. If that makes sense. But basically what it is he's trapped inside of this pen. It's his bottle. When you say so cool, kind of like Shazam, he appears, so you don't have to rub the pen, thank God.
Yeah,
that would have looked really bad. Weird. But when you proclaim the word "so cool," and it was funny because he tricked Mike into saying it by showing him "so cool," so cool. Because if he had just done it as like "so cool," he never would have said it. But he kept putting "so cool" on everything, and finally he just picks up. He's like "so cool," and then blam, he shows up. I was like, all right, that's pretty good. I'm digging the way this is going.
And another guest appearance playing the voice of Thunderbolt is Jim Gaffigan.
I don't know who he is.
You don't know who he is?
Actually, I might, but I just don't recognize the name.
Hot Pocket. Does that ring a bell?
No. Why is that
No,
the thing?
He's a stand-up comic.
Okay.
He also was in both Super Trooper movies as well. He's done some other.
Who was now? I know Super Troopers. Which one was he in Super Troopers?
He was one of the guys that got pulled over.
Oh, one of the Snosberries has Snosberries guy.
I think so.
One of those guys.
Yeah, I think no. He's the one they did meow on. He's like, did you just meow?
Oh,
I think
okay.
I think he's one of those. But anyhow,
visually, I know who that is.
He was in another something else I just watched recently where he played like this drug dealer.
Okay, so
he's a comedian, very funny guy, and I again was another one that's like that sounds like him, and I had to go and look that one up, and yeah, sure enough, I was right.
Okay, Jim Gaffigan. Yep, I do know his face. I don't know his name. That's the problem.
Okay, you don't remember Hot Pocket?
What do you mean Hot Pocket? I don't understand what you're saying right now.
You have to look it up.
I'll look it up later. But yeah, so we get to meet Thunderbolt. He kind of explains the situation. He's like, "Hey, you're my new person because you were the first person to pick me up, even though he wasn't." Like, but then we find out the reason why he's his new person is because of what Mike is going through. And you always see Mike. This is the issue with Mike. Is he's always half in or half out of everything. And mind you, Mike's problem is Mike puts himself into that half in, half out of everything because he doesn't want to be involved with what Dugan's doing half the time. But then all of a sudden he wants to be all in on what Dugan's doing because he's part of the JSA, the new JSA.
It's funny you mentioned half in and half out because usually he's only in half an episode.
That's true. But he talks about the fact that like he doesn't really have a whole lot of friends. He's very lonely he feels lonely all the time, and that's why Thunderbolt has kind of attached himself to him, and it made him his new master, as it were. And he's getting bullied by some big kids from his high school, and he's trying to do his paper route, and they're picking on him. And he gets basically beat up, and nobody pays any attention because they're all talking about what are we doing next with the JSA when he comes in, and that's the part that's not his fault because he's just like, hey, like he didn't say, hey, I just got beat up by 3 kids.
Right.
He just walked in. He's like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, delivering papers.
Yeah. No mention of it.
Yeah. So it's like, dude, if you want some attention, you have to tell people what's going on with you. Like as a parent, I'm going, you're doing this wrong, kid. Like you're just doing this wrong. This is partially your fault. But he's just like, oh, I don't know what's going on with this. And then his boss calls him and tells him, hey, you have a new paper out. And he's like, crap. So he tries to write it down and ends up getting a hold of the pen, and he becomes friends with Thunderbolt. And as he's, like I said, he got him to say "so cool," which is the trigger phrase to get him to come out when he needs him. And he comes out, and he looked like a purple bunny to me. And I'm like, that
that's not what I saw.
Doesn't look right. Like he just looked like a purple bunny.
I saw purple Loki. It looked like horns.
It's supposed to be hair, though. That's supposed to be his hair. Like he's got this like flowing, like weird flappy hair when he comes out. So that's what I was trying.
It's so funny. It's so funny that we saw 2 different things, and it's not even what it's supposed to be.
Well, it's supposed to be his hair. That's what it's supposed to be.
Yeah, it doesn't look like
it's weird. Yeah, so he comes out and he introduces himself. He tells him like you've got unlimited wishes, which is a new thing for genies. And he's like, you just have to be careful what you wish for. And he's like, don't be stupid. And he's like, oh, I'd really like some water. And he gets doused with water. And he's like, I told you. Don't be stupid. He's like, oh, I'd like to be taller. And you see him start to grow. I was laughing so hard. I was like, he's picking him up. I bet you any amount of money. But he wasn't just picking him up. He like lifted him onto a stool or a bench.
Yeah.
I was like,
it was on a bench.
it's not the end of the joke that I wanted, but I thought it was really funny that they did it. And he's like, I told you got to be specific. And you have to be very, very oddly specific with when you try to use Thunderbolt's abilities. So I like this character a lot, honestly. Like he's one of the better characters in the story to me. Like I think his humor is good. Like the interaction that he has with everybody else. When he sees Stripes, he's like, hey, Dugan! Like, he's just this personality that I like. I really like having that personality and that energy in that group.
I gotta be honest. The character itself, it's kind of hard to figure out at this point. I mean, we've only had 1 episode, so it's understandable. But the fact that it's like it seems like he's being honest at times, but at other times it seems like he's just being deceitful.
Right.
So it's like, which is he? Is he really, is he like Loki and a trickster really when it all comes down to it? Or is he just being honest and, and you do have to be very literal with it.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, we don't know. I don't know if we're going to see this character again. We'll talk about that in a little bit.
So yes,
but yeah, I mean, maybe after some more viewings, in other episodes, maybe it'll change.
Yeah.
But for right now, I'm kind of up in the air on the character. Itself.
Yeah. So they the interactions between them, and I'm gonna go through Johnny. I'm gonna go through his whole situation, and then we'll talk about the other thing going on there. The other part to it too is that Pat finds out that obviously Johnny got killed in that battle because Wildcat came and got him, and he's like, "You got to come with me. We need you." And Dugan's like, "I'm ready to go. Put me in the game, coach." He's like, "No, not you. You stay here."
Yeah,
I'm taking Johnny with me. So he takes Johnny, and Johnny obviously dies, and that's how we end up with the fact that Thunderbolt has no partner at this point. So I'm calling
right.
But Pat's like, okay, and then he finds he's like, he really does act a lot like Johnny, and like Johnny Thunder, and he's like, I really kind of see him in that character in Thunderbolt, and he's like, the last thing that Johnny told me before he died was that he wanted me to find a new friend, to make new friends, and he's like, and Mikey's my new friend, so. He attaches to Mikey because he's got a similar, he feels the same way as Mikey does. Like, nobody really pays attention to him, and they don't.
Yeah, it's funny. I actually liked this scene because this is the part where I'm like, okay, well, maybe he is, just maybe he is fine. Maybe he is, really a good character, and not the trickster. So. But I thought the scene was handled really well too.
I mean, he's been trapped in that pen for 11 years, not being able to get out and do anything. Though I'm not sure how. If you can apparently manipulate, the surroundings, but maybe it has to be that you can manipulate the surroundings for the person holding him or something like that. I don't know. I don't know exactly how it works, but we do know he can alter reality, so that's what he did in order to make him say the catchphrase to get him out of the pen. So after they kind of come to the conclusion that, okay, we're going to let Mike keep Thunderbolt, but we're going to need you to understand exactly how to use Thunderbolt. Don't just be like, hey, I want a big old fat badunkadunk, and because you never know what you're going to get. Like, you're going to get something you ain't expecting. But that's like a big thing about genies. It's like a running trope now with genies. Is like, don't ask for something if you're not going to be specific to what it is, because a genie will F your day up with what he gives you.
Yeah, and this leads the gang to decide to use the pen because they can't figure out any other way to stop the shade.
Well, they can't figure out any other way to find the shade.
Oh yeah, to find it.
That's the issue. So they all sit there and brainstorm on a whiteboard how to have Mike give him exact instructions on how to find the shade. Mm-hmm. And then we also find out that the shade was Goggles' arch nemesis. So he's the one who killed Dr. Midnight, as far as we know, quote unquote.
Yeah. Allegedly.
Yeah. Let's allegedly. So he gives him the speech. He wishes properly. A firebolt pops out and lands on the map and burns out a section of the map. And they're like, "Oh, that's where he is." So they decide.
I was waiting for him to go. I don't know where he's at. It's all burnt in that area.
like
in there.
That burn was like a 2-mile radius, and we really have no idea exactly where he is. But so they go and they don their costumes and they head out to go take on the Shade. Now, what we did see earlier is that the Shade had gone to see Stargirl's mom again to try to get a hold of what we know is Eclipso. He was looking for the black diamond in the box. And she was trying to figure out what it was he wanted, and she couldn't quite find the thing that she thought he would have been looking for. And then when he shows up in there, they come across the box. And he's like, so how about you just let me keep this box? It's empty.
Let's not forget he showed up in a very creepy way too.
Yeah. He just kind
Where
of
she's in a room where there's not much light, which I don't know why she didn't turn the light on in the first place, but whatever.
So I'm
And
gonna.
then he just sneaks in real quietly. He's standing
Nope,
there.
he was already there. He was already there. You didn't notice it? I was gonna ask you if you noticed it.
Oh, really?
So this is what I deduced. This is what I deducted from what happened when she walked in the room. You know, she had to turn that timer on for the light.
Yeah.
When she turned that light on, she walks into the room and she like kind of jumps for a second, like what's going on, and then she walks in the room. As she's walking in the room, if you look over to the right hand side, his hat is sitting on the edge of that on the edge of the thing. Like he's wearing a magician's cap, like hat, like a stovepipe hat. It's literally hanging on the edge of the shelf right above her head when she walks in. And then when he does pop up, it falls off of the edge, it hits the ground, and he pops up behind her with the hat on. So he was already in there probably looking for the black diamond. She walked in and surprised him, and when she turned the lights on, he lost all of his shadow power because the lights came on. So then he pops up once she gets to the point where she's like towards the back of that room. It's darker in that corner, and he pops out of the shadow, and he's like, "Oh, I just came to see if I could help because I want this thing." And she's like, "Well, what is it?" He's like, "I don't know, but I'll know when I see it." And then he finds the box, and that's the box that contained the black diamond.
Can I have this box?
It's empty. It's just a box. You don't need it. And she's like, "No, it's part of the inventory. Go away." And then the
what
lights.
Are you doing in here anyway?
The lights click out because the timer ran out, and you see he was about to like shadow jump her butt. And then she runs over and turns the lights on real quick, and it brings the lights back up, and poof, he's gone.
Yeah.
But now, if you watch it again, you'll see what I'm talking about. Because I was really kind of impressed with the way they set that up. Because as soon as I saw the hat, I'm like, dude, that's Shadow's hat. That's Shade's hat. He's in there with her. And then they played it out. So I was actually pretty happy about that.
Cool.
So now we kind of get an idea of what he's looking for. We know he's looking for Eclipso. We know who has Eclipso. So obviously there's going to be a clash there somewhere. We're getting the ongoing suspicion that he is not there to, continue the Injustice Society. So he's obviously in it for himself. And to that end, the new JSA decide we're gonna go and we're gonna find him, but they're like, Mike, you stay here and protect the shop. I'm like, this is exactly why this kid has this fucking feeling. Like is it because he doesn't have a mask? Like, if they had done this, all they would have to say is, hey, you need to stay here because they don't know who you are, and you need a costume or a mask or something to hide your identity so that people don't know that you're part of the JSA and they won't give you a hard time. Though Johnny Thunder didn't have a specific, outfit that would have kept people from seeing him. Like, he really wanted to be seen.
He didn't have a mask.
In what he wore, he wanted people to know and see who he was. But, like if they had done something like that, just said, hey, next time you're going to be able to come with us, we need you to stay here right now because they're going to know who you are. We don't want you to get hurt. Something. But no, they alienated the kid again, made him feel again like he was not part of the team, and they left him there. And he tried. I will give this to him. He tried not to do it. Like, he kept picking up that pen. He's like, nope. I'm going to be good. Just going to wait here for Dad to come back. And he's like, maybe, nope, I'm not going to do it. And then he's like, nope, I got this pen and there's a genie in it and I want to use it, but I can't. And then he's like, fuck it. And he just jumps over, starts writing himself out a nice wish, I guess, spell, as it were, so to make sure he did it right so he didn't screw up. Meanwhile, the rest of the JSA and Stripesy are confronting Shade. And Shade is trying to explain to him. He's like, hey, come on in, sit down, have some tea. Like, this doesn't need to be what you're about to make it into. I don't want to fight. I just want to talk. Sit down.
I like the, hey, have some tea. Yeah, I'm gonna take any kind of food or drink from a bad guy.
He was like, sit down, be humble, let's go. And he's like, I'm not trying to be shifty or cause problems. I'm here for a reason, and it's not what you think it is. I have no plans on trying to take over this town. Like, Icicle was a sycophant. And like I could care less. And that's when he threw that line at them. He's like, "Your generation's gonna destroy the world anyway."
I loved that line. That was my favorite line, and I literally laughed out loud.
Yeah, so I was laughing.
Your generation is gonna ruin this world.
I was laughing because as soon as I heard it, I was like, I could picture you sitting there laughing at it, which made me laugh even more. But he's like, yeah, he's like, I know you guys want to come here and fight me, but that's not what's gonna happen. And of course, Goggles is like, yeah, but you killed Dr. Midnight, and I don't like you, so I want to fight you. And I'm like, you can't fight, chick. You need to step back. Like, you have no abilities. Like, you literally have no abilities right now because the goggles don't actually work 100%. So, like, back up a little bit. And he's like, look, this isn't going to happen this way. I don't know what you guys are planning, what you think is going to happen. Just sit down, have some tea, let's talk. And I think they should have. Like, I really feel like you guys, I know he is a bad guy, but you already know he betrayed them in the first place because he took off. And then he was like, she was like, "Oh, you killed Dr. Midnight." He's like, "Little girl, you have no idea of what you speak." And I was like, "Ooh, interesting."
But at the same time, who's to say when he's going to turn on them too?
That's true.
But if you just,
but let's put it this way: if a bad guy comes in town and he's like, "Look, I know who you are. You know who I am. I don't care. I'm not looking to cause problems. There's one thing I want. I'm out. Help me get that thing. You ain't got to see me again." But then as a good guy, you're like, yeah, but if I give you that thing, what are you going to do with it when you leave here? Like, I get that part. Like, that part of the superhero, I guess, credo, you can't just ignore the fact that this bad guy is trying to get a hold of something powerful and you don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But...
So they think that everything's going fine until Mike busts in because he made that wish.
Yeah.
And he ends up...
He pissed.
Dade ends up throwing everybody off to the side, and and torturing them for a second, and then he ends up leaving, and they all end up, leaving.
Dude, did you see what he did? Did you see what he did to Dr. Midnight? Or I guess what would we go? Goggles. I don't want to call her Goggles, but she's supposed to be Dr. Midnight. But
he made her put her head down.
He put her head down on the table. I'm like, that's disrespectful. That's just flat out 100%, in the words of Boomer, disrespectful. It's like...
to be fair though, to be fair, if he had actually gone through and ended everybody else but left her, now she's having to be forced to deal with not being able to see what happened, but hear everything and know what happened. And so that in itself is, a form of torture, really.
Yeah. So, once he takes his leave, he fades into the shadows, leaves them all. He basically restrained them all. He tried to take the staff from Stargirl, but the staff got pissed and it just flared out enough light to make his shadow disappear. And at that point, he realized if that thing does that again, I'm going to be gone. So he, hocus pocus his way out of there. And then later on that night, Mike is sitting there feeling, one, like, I fucked up again. Two, I just wanted to be part of the group. Y'all left me out. So I had to do something. And he inadvertently makes a wish, not realizing what he was doing. And Courtney tried to stop him. She heard him go, "I wish." She's like, "No!" And he goes, "Wish that it was in bed, that Thunderbolt was in better hands." And poof, he gone.
So now it goes to a kid who, likes to spend time playing video games and gets berated by his sister. So like any other teenager.
Not only that, but did you see who it was?
No, some random kid.
It wasn't a random kid. It's actually Mike's friend. That's Mike's only friend in the school. That's Jakeem. That's his friend from school.
I didn't know he had any.
Yeah, he's got one friend at the school, and that's him. But in the comic books, Jakeem is Thunderbolt. Actually, it's Jakeem Thunder. It says you just become Thunder is your second name.
So why didn't you call that? Why didn't you predict that back in the first season?
Because I knew it already. It wasn't a prediction if I already knew it was going to happen.
Well, you didn't say
I didn't want to ruin it. I knew what they were going to do.
We made predictions on all the other ones.
But I make predictions on things that I don't know. I make predictions on things that I think might happen, but I already knew about this. Why? Because he's a black superhero in DC. I know all of the black superheroes in DC and Marvel. So this isn't something that was going to be like a surprise. I didn't want to like play it off like, oh, I bet you any amount of money he's going to end up, the pen's going to end up with a young black guy. Like I already knew. I am not new rock stars. Fuck you.
Well, here's the thing. We saw this episode. We just went through the whole episode, but I don't understand something. Where was Green Lantern at?
Very good point. Because at the end of last episode, she did not say anything about leaving. She did kind of talk about, she did kind of talk about wanting to go find her brothers. So it may be one of those things where you're just like, yeah, we kind of side-ass mentioned it for like half a second. You're supposed to notice 100 and take it in 100% that's why she wasn't there this episode. But that's probably what they're going to do. They're going to, when she pops back up, she's going to be like, oh, I was trying to find my brother.
Yeah, it's probably because this was filmed like before they, right. I don't know. It was filmed first and they hadn't cast that role yet, so they just didn't include her. I enjoyed this episode, I think.
Right.
It wasn't bad. It didn't really seem like a filler episode because you were able to introduce the Pan and Thunderbolt, and so you get the backstory there, and who knows, maybe in an episode or two, that kid will end up officially joining the rest of the group, and then Mike is going to be upset, and then he's going to end up getting recruited by the bad guys, and there you go.
Yeah, it's interesting though because like in the actual comic books, in the like JJ Thunder is a character that is not what this is. Like they've how do I explain it? So Thunderbolt's character is high energy, like ADD. He's HDAD in a lightning bolt. That's what that character is. And Jakeem in the comic books is like a hard ass street kid. So like they've completely like flipped this over, which is because this character is the exact opposite. Like JJ's parent, like his mom or his dad died when he was young or something like that. And then like he ended up like living with, I don't remember exact storylines. I just know the character slightly, but he ended up, he was basically a street kid. Like he was street smart, just like foul mouth street kid that you would expect from like this living, taking care of himself, latchkey kind of kid type of thing. But in this is a completely different take on that character. Now they've they still have Thunderbolt is still HDAD and a lightning bolt, but the characters that they're attaching him to seem to be like these kind of mousy, like forgotten characters, because Johnny Thunderbolt was the same way with if you look at that character with when he was talking to Stripesy at the beginning, he is exactly the same way that Mike is, and he's exactly the way that Jakeem is when they show him at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's good.
I can see it's gonna end up. They're gonna end up treating him the same way because they don't feel like, and then it's just it's the whole thing is just continuing.
So
whoever gets that pen is just doomed to be.
Here is my theory, though. There's two things that I'm thinking about how this is going to play out. Jakeem gets the pen. He ends up alienating Mike even more because now he has this cool cosmic power, right? He has the pen. He's like, oh, I got this thing. I got this power. He starts to become the JJ Williams from the comic book. He starts to become this street smart kid that kind of starts to ignore Mike and not be as much as close a friend with Mike, thus throwing Mike even further into that funk of, I don't have any friends, nobody likes me, I'm like the out guy. And then that's how Shiv turns him to the ISA. You see what I'm saying? Because she had him on that list, and if that's what they're looking to do, then that's how they're going to do it. They're going to play on
it here.
Yeah, they're going to play on his insecurities, and she's going to be like, "None of them like you. You know who your sister is. You know who all of them are, and they just kicked you out of the group." Blah blah blah. Like not, and it's going to end up driving him to becoming one of the bad guys in the ISA somehow. I'm not sure who he would end up being, because they don't have artifacts like she has to turn them into who they are. But somewhere in there. I mean, there are still, you don't have to necessarily be superpowered, because there's some other characters that I think are going to end up coming in. I think that they're going to probably pull in the gambler's daughter. He had a daughter in the comic books, but I can't remember what her name was. But she was a probabilities, like her ability was she could like probabilities and like shit like that, and she could make things happen based on probabilities. Like she would just figure it out and see like that this and this are going to equal into this, and now I'm going to fuck you up with it, kind of thing. So I'm interested to see where the ISA comes from, or the is it ISA, Injustice Society
of America?
Is
I
it?
think.
Anyway, yeah. So I
Yeah.
mean, basically, what it comes down to is like, you know who Johnny Thunder is, you know who they portrayed that character as, you know who Mike is, you know how they portrayed him as Mikey Thunder. Now we know what they're planning with Jakeem Thunder, JJ Thunder. But I think Jakeem is going to turn from the kid that we just saw into JJ Thunder, because having Thunderbolt is going to give him confidence and make him more popular. He's going to instantly become friends with the whole JSA, where Mike wasn't able to, even though his sister is the leader of it. And then that's going to turn Mike inwards even more, and that's going to turn him dark. And as soon as he turns dark, that's where they're going to swoop in and pull him into the ISA. So it's a big curly circle, but I'm looking forward to see where they take it.
I firmly believe that as well too.
One last thing. Chuck shows back up while they're sitting there, and she's like, Beth is like, Chuck, where have you been? And Chuck's like, Beth. I'm like, oh, I thought you didn't know who she was. Now he knows who she is. He's like, you have to watch out. He's here. Eclipso is after, and then he shuts off again. And she's like, Eclipso is after us. She's like, you don't even know who Eclipso is. Why are you saying that so confidently? Like, it should have been a question mark. Like, who's Eclipso? Why is he after us?
What's
like,
Eclipso? Yeah,
she's just like, oh, Eclipso's after him. I'm like, you don't know who that is. Mm-hmm. None of you know who that is.
Unless they say that off screen she was doing research and saw the name,
maybe
in the goggles or whatever. But that's the way they'll end up working at it.
I do see, however, that I don't think that Shade gives a crap about the ISA and what they're doing. I don't think he cares what the JSA wants to do. I think he just wants to get his hands on Eclipso to increase his power. Because if you really think about it, Eclipso is all about darkness, and he's all about the shadows and darkness. So I'm pretty sure that he feels like he can control Eclipso and use his powers to his betterment, so that he can become a bigger villain. Which means, I think the other thing that I think may happen is that Shade will become the big bad for the season, and he's going to become the big bad because he thinks he's going to take over Eclipso. But Eclipso is going to take over him, and when he takes over Shade, it's going to give him so much more power and reach that Shade is going to become the big bad. But it's actually going to be like Eclipso Shade, like half face, whatever. So I think that's where it's going, and I'm not. I mean, it's going pretty well so far, so I'm not disappointed with what they're doing so far.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see where our predictions get us, and we do want to thank you for watching. Be sure to check us out on Twitch at 7 p.m. Eastern. Twitch.tv/MillerKing_51. The link is in the description down below. While you're down there, please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button as well, and hit the bell.
Ding that bell for notifications.
When you go over to Vic's channel, make sure you hit the follow button, and you can follow me. I'm on Twitch as well too. That's twitch.tv/NKOGonzo. So on behalf of Vic,
that's me.
I'm Corey. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you next time.
See ya. It looks like his hair, but it's supposed to be lightning bolts. But they're super floppy, so it looks like it's supposed to be hair, but they're actually 3 lightning bolts. But give him some rigidity there. Like, if they're lightning bolts, make them lightning bolts. Don't make them floppy. Kidding. They look like floppy feathers.
I seriously, it looked like Loki's horn to the long ones.
Yeah.
That's all I kept saying the entire time.
To each their own, but yeah, you're wrong. Just joking.